have often been told that the past can be buried, outgrown, or forgotten with enough time. Whoever first uttered those words did not live in Ashwood, the small town in upstate New York that abandoned me with the ease of brushing off dirt from a shoe. Here, the past is not buried. It's preserved like a corpse in ice, and every whisper, every sidelong glance, every turned back is an exhumation. Friends, you enjoy listening to stories, but you don't subscribe to the channel or like the videos. I request you to please subscribe to the channel right now so that I get more motivation to bring you even more stories. If you help me reach 1,000 subscribers, I promise to bring you extremely best stories with a truly real feel, so go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and now let's move on to today's story. I was 29 when they cast me out, though cast is perhaps too graceful a word. I was pushed into exile, dragged downward by suspicion, gossip, and cruelty so thick it felt deliberate. Once, I was a wife, a mother, a good neighbor who baked pies for fundraisers, folded linens for church gatherings, drove carpools when no one else could. But that all ended the night my husband vanished. Some said he left me because I was unfaithful. Others whispered darker stories, that I had harmed him myself. There were even those who insisted I was some sly, manipulative snake who had finally chased him to his grave. The police found nothing. They questioned me, of course, staring too long at my steady hands as if guilt should shake them. When the investigation quieted, the silence was worse than the interrogation. Ashwood is not a forgiving place. They did not need evidence to execute me socially. They only needed their hunger for scandal and an empty chair at the church pew where my husband had once sat. So, we were exiled, not by law, but by consensus. The children and I. It began with the mothers at school. Smiles that traded sweetness for frost. Invitations that ceased arriving. My children's friends pulled away as if our misfortune might taint them like a disease. I tried to shield my son, Aaron, and my daughter, Lily, from the worst of it, but no mother can stop cruel whispers from reaching tender ears. And yet, even as we lost neighbors, we found each other more fully. What remained of my family grew sharper in its unity, like a blade hammered in fire. I still remember the night we realized survival meant we had to become something more than victims. We were sitting in the cramped apartment we had been forced to rent on the edge of town, the wallpaper peeling in jaundiced strips, the heater rattling like bones. Lily, only 15 then, stared at me with eyes too old for her face. She murmured, "They don't deserve to win, Mama." Aaron, 17, added quietly, "Maybe we shouldn't just endure this. Maybe we make them regret it." The words landed softly on the table between us, yet they echoed inside me with a thunderous clarity. Something shifted, a recognition that we were no longer just surviving. We were preparing. I will not lie and pretend there was a single moment of courage. My road was not lit by sudden bravery, but by embers of rage that smoldered night after night. I used to cry into my pillow after the children slept. Cry for the husband I did not kill, for the town that did not care for truth, for the life I had lost. But as months passed, tears hardened. Rage burned cleaner, sharper, hotter. When I walked through Ashwood streets, people averted their eyes, but I looked back at them with renewed interest. I began to study their patterns, their weaknesses. I learned who betrayed their vows, who cheated at business, who hid debts behind closed doors. Ashwood was full of sins, it always had been. But until I was cast out, I never saw how tightly people clung to their masks. The irony was bitter, they had judged me guilty without proof, while they themselves were guilty of so much. One of the ringleaders of my exile was Marian Blake, president of the Parent-Teacher Association. Her voice was a scalpel, cutting reputations with precision. She had been the loudest in suggesting I was unfit to be around decent families. Yet Marian's son, Timothy, had a hidden habit of shoplifting. I knew because I had once caught him slipping candy bars into his coat sleeve at the grocery store. I hadn't told anyone. Back then, I still believed in kindness. Now, however, that memory was a loaded bullet, and I had a gun barrel waiting for it. Another was Pastor Daniel Carr, who preached purity from his pulpit but came too close to many of the church's young wives. I saw the side glances, the touches that lingered too long. His favorite mistress was a woman who now sat smugly in the pew, whispering about me in the bakery line. I held their secret in my mouth like poison, waiting for the moment to spit it back. Piece by piece, the town revealed itself as fragile, hypocritical, and fatally self-assured. And my children, my beautiful loves, kept sharpening themselves too. Aaron had a knack for computers, quietly intercepting emails and piecing together strange little secrets from unsecured accounts. Lily was the artist. She could mimic handwriting, redraw official documents, and turn harmless notes into weapons of suspicion. Together, we became something unnatural, a trinity of vengeance, knitted together by anguish. The first move was small. Late one autumn evening, Aaron showed me a series of messages between Marion Blake and her sister. They were about unpaid debts, gambling losses, and a secret bank loan her husband didn't know about. Lily, with a child's giddy zeal and frightening calm, drafted an anonymous note. We mailed it directly to Marion's husband. Within weeks, cracks appeared. By Christmas, the Blake household was a silence broken only by muffled shouts behind thin walls. Marion didn't meet anyone's eyes at church anymore. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt lighter. It was Lily who whispered the word one night as we washed dishes together, game. That was what it began to feel like. A game where the board was Ashwood itself, the pieces its self-righteous citizens. And we were no longer pawns, but the invisible players, moving them at will. The next move targeted Pastor Carr. It was easy. Too easy. Emails stolen, photographs gathered. Anonymous letters planted. It didn't even matter what evidence was real, suspicion was enough. Soon, whispers rustled through the congregation. His sermons drew fewer ears, his voice carried less authority. He looked at me once in passing, and I thought I saw fear. It tasted like sweet water on my tongue. To the casual observer, I was merely silent, withdrawn, still bearing the shame others had sown along my name. Behind closed doors, however, we were architects of ruin. Still, vengeance is not without cost. There are nights when Lily wakes screaming, soaked in sweat, muttering that we've gone too far. Sometimes Aaron stares at me with eyes that don't belong to a teenager anymore but to a man hardened too quickly. I know I am shaping them into weapons the world cannot unmake. And sometimes, though only briefly, I wonder if I have bent them toward shadows unfairly. But then I remember the cruelty in Marion's voice. The way Pastor Carr looked at me like a crow staring at carrion. The way people crossed the street rather than meet my eyes. And I think, no. They are not children destroyed. They are children transformed. They are steel, and I have forged them. They call me mother, but sometimes I think of us as co-conspirators, silent angels of justice circling the rod of Ashwood. This is just the beginning. Our revenge has been gentle so far, a prelude to symphony. They have only tasted whispers and small undoings. They will not see the final act until it swallows them whole, until the same society that cast us out collapses beneath its shame. And when that day comes, I will look into their terrified faces and say, "You made me an outcast. You made my children exiles. But you also made us strong. Stronger than you will ever be." People think revenge is a thunderclap, a sudden lightning strike from a blackened sky. But in truth, it is a slow rain. A drizzle that dampens the earth until rot sets in, unseen at first, until the ground gives way beneath unsuspecting feet. By the time spring breathed into Ashwood again, our rain had been falling for months. Marion Blake never recovered from her husband's knowledge of her debts. Her place at the PTA shriveled. She was no longer the queen bee directing whispers but the object of them. Her lipstick smudged now, her hair stiff with neglect. She avoided eye contact even with the cashiers at the grocery store. Pastor Carr's sermons grew shorter, and the congregation noticeably thinner. His booming voice trembled when he called for holiness. Some left their hymnals behind on the pews, as if his words had soiled even the pages. More than once, I caught him staring at me. His face was a battlefield, anger on one side, fear on the other, guilt wedged like a dagger between them. But these were only pawns. The heart of Ashwood still beat strongly in the chests of its more powerful citizens. And to dismantle them, I knew we had to sharpen our game. One evening, Aaron placed a thick folder on the table. His face wore that cautious excitement I had come to associate with discovery. "You're not going to believe this," he said, and his fingers drummed the cardboard cover. "Councilman Harold Griffith. Mr. Moral Compass himself. He's been laundering money through his brother-in-law's contracting business." The words filled the kitchen with their weight. Councilman Griffith was not just powerful, he was the symbol of legitimacy. He had been one of the loudest voices saying I was a stain on the town, that families should keep their distance. He looked every person in the eye when he said it, as if gifting fairness itself. "How did you find it?" I asked, measuring Aaron's face. He grinned faintly. A mix of his sloppy email security and public property records. It wasn't even hard. His grin faded, softened into something older. "He shouldn't have messed with you, Mom." Lily looked up from her notebook, where she had been sketching a woman's face dissolving into smoke. "If we hit Griffith, the whole town will feel it. He's their spine." I looked at my children then, not as innocents corrupted, but as soldiers tempered. Was I wrong to steer them into this war? No, I thought. The world conscripted them the day Ashwood spat on our name. I was simply giving them weapons. That night we sat late at the table, planning. Aaron would secure evidence, but not all at once. Too much revelation might invite suspicion of the source. No, we would tear Griffith down piece by piece, until his polished dignity was nothing but a skeleton of lies. And my part? I would deliver whispers, subtle and barbed. After all, I knew the rhythm of this town's gossip better than anyone. I had been its victim, now I would be its conductor. The first seed was a conversation at the laundromat. I accidentally dropped a receipt Aaron had forged, fake but plausible, into the hands of Diane Walker, Ashwood's worst gossip hound. She picked it up, read it before I could pretend surprise, and her eyes lit. "Oh, you poor thing," she murmured. "These contractors, they overcharge everybody. Shameful." I only smiled weakly. I knew Diane couldn't keep it. By the following week, whispers sprouted like weeds. Then came Lily's touch, forged invoices, slipped quietly beneath office doors. Anonymous typed notes mailed to the local paper. Each strand wove tighter until suspicion held Griffith like a noose. Rumors spread through town halls, barber shops, school board meetings. Dishonesty, they called it. Fraud, some dared. Griffith's once booming voice faltered. When he passed me on the street, he looked through me, not with contempt this time, but with dread. I sometimes wonder when vengeance became more than justice for me. In the beginning, it was simple, make them see the hypocrisy of their cruelty. But the deeper we cut, the sweeter it tasted. One night, as we celebrated Griffith's public fumbling in the newspaper, Lily turned to me and asked quietly, "Do you ever feel scared of what we're becoming?" Her question settled between us like ash. I looked at her, the curve of her cheeks still soft with youth, her eyes older than they had any right to be. "Every day," I admitted. But fear has sharp edges. We can use them. As long as we hold tight to each other, we don't lose ourselves. She nodded, but I knew some doubt remained. And in truth, maybe it should. Doubt is what keeps one from falling completely into darkness. The dominoes fell slowly, beautifully. Marion Blake, disgraced. Pastor Carr, silenced. Councilman Griffith, unraveling. But still, it wasn't enough. Ashwood as a whole continued on, its people blindly content to let their leaders suffer while they pretended innocence. Yet I remembered their laughter behind my back, the turned shoulders, the murmured lies that made my children pariahs. They were all guilty. And so, I began thinking not of individuals, but of society itself. Could a whole town be broken the way a family was? Could you turn the very fabric of community into a web that devoured itself? The idea seized me late one night as I stood looking out over Ashwood from our apartment balcony. Porch lights twinkled in the distance like stars, each one belonging to a household that had abandoned me. Each light glowed with the self-righteousness of people who believed their cruelty carried no cost. I whispered to myself then, as if making an oath with the wind, the whole town will pay. Our tactics grew more complex. Aaron fed us lists of hidden affairs, unpaid taxes, black market dealings. Lily drafted letters, clever and venomous, designed to look like locals betraying one another. We spread them like seeds, slipped into mailboxes, left on doorsteps, folded into hymnals. Soon, neighbor turned against neighbor. One accused another of stealing money at a charity auction. Another suspected her husband of infidelity. The mayor's wife confronted him screaming outside the grocery store. Disorder spread like a sickness, each household unsure who had betrayed them. And in the middle of it all, the three of us stood invisible, untouched. I should have felt triumphant watching Ashwood seems fray, its people mangling each other. But a small voice in me still asked, who are we becoming? Each time, I silenced it by looking at my children. Their lives had been stolen, I was only giving them justice. Yet the higher the fire rose, the more dangerous it became. One afternoon, Aaron came home pale. Mom, someone might be on to us. Deputy Rowland has been asking questions. Tracking where certain letters were mailed. Lily froze. Do you think they'll think it's us? I forced calm into my voice even as dread dug at my ribs. No. We've been careful. But from now on, we cover better. Still, for the first time, I felt the claws of risk sink deep. If we were unmasked, Ashwood would not just exile us. It would destroy us entirely. And maybe, that was when the revenge changed into something else. Not just survival or justice. But war. Because now, it was us or them. Chaos is not an explosion. It is a whisper that grows until it becomes a scream. By summer, Ashwood no longer resembled the town that had once exiled me. Its church pews stood half empty, PTA meetings dissolved into shouting matches, and the once confident leaders shuffled like beaten dogs through streets now thick with suspicion. Neighbors locked their doors earlier, avoided each other's eyes. It was as if a sickness had burrowed into their marrow. And we, the exiled, had become the surgeons of their decay. Even grocery shopping felt different. I used to walk those aisles in shame, avoiding glances. Now, I saw nothing but paranoia painted across familiar faces. Marion Blake, once radiant with gossip, shuffled past me without a word, her eyes hollowed from the bowels at home. Pastor Carr hurried through the aisles head down, as if he feared shadows themselves would accuse him. And Councilman Griffith, clean-shaven once, polished shoes clicking authority, looked like a man burning in his own lies. He muttered to cashiers, his smiles twitching, frantic. But Ashwood's collapse did not stop with its leaders. Ordinary families, ordinary couples, began unraveling under the rumors we planted. Husbands accused wives. Friends betrayed friends. Fractures appeared everywhere, widening daily. What had once been a united circle that condemned me was now a battlefield of small wars. I should have felt victorious. Yet at night, staring at the cracked ceiling above our apartment, I felt something else too, unease. One evening, Lily came into my room carrying her sketchbook. She lingered at the door, hesitant. "Mom," she said quietly, "I want you to see something." I gestured for her to come. She sat on the edge of the bed and turned the pages until she revealed a drawing unlike her usual dark, sharp imagery. This one was of me. But not me as I was. Her drawing captured me with hard, angular features, my hands stretched like puppet strings over the outline of Ashwood. Her pencil strokes were savage, almost frantic. My face inside the drawing looked both triumphant and monstrous. I reached out and touched the page. "Is this how you see me?" I asked softly. Her voice cracked as she answered. "Sometimes. I know they hurt us. I know they deserve it. But part of me wonders if we've turned into something worse. Something dangerous." I thought of what she said long after she left the room. Dangerous. Was I dangerous? Maybe. But wasn't that what they had made me? Outcast, liar, witch, murderer, they'd named me dangerous long before I had earned it. Now I was simply living up to the reputation. I pressed the sketchbook to my chest that night, both afraid and strangely proud. Aaron, on the other hand, did not struggle with doubt. Revenge had sharpened him like glass. "Stop worrying, Mom," he told me as we looked over stolen emails from the mayor's office. They didn't hesitate when they left us to starve. They didn't hesitate when they laughed at Lily. Why should we? You gave us life again. Ashwood just taught us who the real monsters are. His conviction should have comforted me. Yet sometimes, in the quiet moments, I wondered if I had lit a fire inside him that would never extinguish. The games escalated. Aaron unearthed proof that the mayor's brother had been embezzling funds through the fire department. Lily forged records that made it appear a beloved teacher had plagiarized entire research articles from his grad school days. At first, these were only seeds, planted in the fertile soil of gossip. But now they sprouted curses. The mayor found himself hounded in council meetings, his voice drowned in accusations. The teacher resigned abruptly, shame staining him like ink that never fades. I didn't deliver these blows directly, no, we still breathed behind masks. Flaming hatred worked best when suspicion fell on everyone else. By sending evidence in different directions, we ensured no thread pointed toward us. Some neighbors believed it was the state, others thought rival families were out for blood. A few mused aloud that perhaps God himself was punishing Ashwood for its arrogance. How easy it was, really, to make them destroy each other. But the cracks spreading through Ashwood did not go unnoticed by law enforcement. Deputy Rowland's name began circling in our conversations more often, like a predator sniffing around our den. Late one night, as we ate leftover pasta by candlelight, Aaron said quietly, "Rowland's setting up meetings, pulling records, connecting dots. He won't find us, Mom, but it's only a matter of time before he tries." "Then we find his weakness before he finds ours," I replied too quickly, surprising even myself. Lily froze halfway into her bite. "Mom, are we really talking about going after a cop now?" I stared at her, holding her gaze. If survival demands it, then yes. They chose this war when they cast us out. And we promised we'd never let them win again. My voice was steady, but my heart trembled in my chest. Crossing that line, from tearing citizens apart to corrupting law itself, was dangerous. But hadn't I already crossed too many lines to retreat now? Weeks passed, and with them came louder fractures in the town. The grocery store buzzed not with chatter but with icy silences. Fights broke out in the church parking lot. Old friends stopped attending each other's dinners. Children whispered to me at school pickups, asking if certain rumors were true about their parents. Ashwood had once been a place of Sunday barbecues, school dances, shared casseroles. Now, it was a carcass, its people gnawing at one another. And yet, I felt little pity. Because every scream that echoed in those households was an echo of mine. Every betrayal they endured was a pale shadow of what they had done to me. Every fracture was justice living and breathing through me. Perhaps I was dangerous. But I was also necessary. One evening, as we watched from our balcony, I saw torches flicker in the distance, neighbors forming watch groups to police one another. Armed with flashlights and suspicion, they patrolled in knots, whispering about traitors and sinners. Lily hugged herself, shivering though the night was warm. "They're falling apart," she whispered. "Correction," Aaron said with a strange smile. "They're destroying themselves. We just gave them the push." I placed my arm around both of them, pulling them close. My voice steadied even as fear and triumph collided in my chest. "Remember this. Never forget it. They took everything from us, our home, our dignity, our peace. Now look at them. Do you see what happens when you build a society on hypocrisy?" Neither answered, but I knew they felt it, the enormity of what we had set in motion. That night, as sleep refused to come, I lay with my thoughts twisting like wire inside me. I remembered the woman I had been, a wife who smiled at potlucks, a mother who believed in fairness, a neighbor who trusted easily. She was gone, burned to ash the moment Ashwood condemned me without proof. In her place stood someone else. Someone who pulled strings in the dark, someone who crafted ruin from whispers, someone who no longer dreamed of forgiveness but of total collapse. And still, I was a mother. That remained truer than anything. Every act, every scheme, every whisper of vengeance was for Aaron and Lily. They had grown into weapons, yes, but also into survivors. I had sharpened them, but only because the world had tried to break them first. If I was dangerous because I refused to let them suffer for sins they did not commit. Ashwood thought they had destroyed me when they exiled us. But they misunderstood. They had birthed me instead. The mother they once pitted was gone. In her place now lived something far stronger, far stranger, something Ashwood would never silence. If whispers had been enough to gut Ashwood, then fire would be what finished it. By late summer, our town resembled a dying forest, its roots already infested with rot. But even a rotting forest can stand for years unless someone strikes the match. That someone, I knew, had to be us. The question was not if we would set the blaze, but how. Aaron found the answer. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, his eyes glowing with that unnerving calm of his. "They've been hiding a lot more than affairs and fraud," he said. "Ashwood's financial records are cooked. The council's been misusing funds meant for road repairs and schools. Guess where the money goes? Private accounts, fake businesses, even vacations. This isn't just corruption, it's theft on a grand scale." Lily leaned forward, her dark hair falling across her sketches. "If this comes out, the entire council collapses. Everyone who trusted them, everyone who defended them, will turn on each other. It won't just be whispers anymore. It'll be war. And who will they blame?" I asked quietly. Aaron shrugged, a hard smile tightening his face. "Not us. We'll scatter the clues in every direction. Journalists, rival council members, angry parents, church leaders, it'll look like the whole town betrayed itself." The plan was dangerous. It was also perfect. Still, Danger circled us closer than ever. Deputy Roland had become a specter in our lives. I caught him watching me at the market one day, eyes sharp beneath his hat brim. He pretended to nod politely, but suspicion glistened behind his gaze. Later that week, Aaron noticed his police cruiser parked near our apartment longer than coincidence allowed. Roland was searching. "You think he suspects us?" Lily whispered one evening as we drew the curtains tight. "He suspects someone," I answered. "And suspicion is enough to kill. That's why we move quickly. If he's close, then we have to finish before he unmasks us." The strike began not with a bang but with carefully opened envelopes. We tipped off a mid-level journalist in Albany with forged copies of financial records. We sent anonymous emails to watchdog groups. Lily designed crude but believable flyers accusing council members of theft, which we left scattered in public places, playgrounds, post offices, even pinned to the church bulletin board. The effect was swift. Furious parents began demanding answers about missing education funds. Road crews refused to work until they were paid. Shouting matches filled public meetings, amplified by newspaper articles with headlines like "Is Ashwood stealing from its own children?" And beneath the headlines, beneath the rage, the fractures deepened. Families who supported certain leaders clashed with those who despised them. Fist fights broke out. The fire was lit, and once fire tastes oxygen, it will not die by will alone. But Ashwood wasn't the only thing unraveling. One night, I woke to find Lily crying silently at the table. Sketches lay scattered before her, images of burning houses, families turning knives on each other, a mother's face torn between triumph and terror. My face again. She looked up when she realized I was there, her cheeks wet. "What if we can't stop it anymore, Mom? What if we've made something that swallows even us?" I placed my hand over hers. "The town swallowed us first," I said firmly. "We are only making it choke on its own cruelty." But even as I said it, doubt curled inside me. Not about whether Ashwood deserved destruction, it did. But whether my children's souls could bear the weight of wielding such destruction. 2 days later, Deputy Roland came to our door. I recognized his knock before I opened it, firm, measured, the kind that carries authority. He stood there in uniform, his expression carefully neutral. "Evening, ma'am," he said. "Just wanted to see how you and your kids are holding up these days. I know things have been tense in town." My heartbeat drummed painfully, but I kept my face calm. "We're doing what we always do. Surviving." His eyes lingered on me, sharper than his words. Funny thing about survivors. Sometimes they turn out to be the strongest ones among us. And sometimes, they're the ones pulling the strings. I held his gaze steadily, my voice quiet but edged. "Deputy, if I were pulling the strings, don't you think this town would already have paid for what it's done to me?" He studied me a moment longer, then tipped his hat. "Just making sure everyone's safe. You let me know if you see anything suspicious." When he walked away, I clenched my fists until my nails left marks on my palms. He was close, too close. But his warning gave me clarity. If he wanted proof, he'd never find it because we would end this before morning came. Our final blow had to be merciless. We hacked into the town's public announcement system, using Aaron's tricks and Lily's forged codes. By dawn, emails landed in every household's inbox, genuine-seeming bank records, invoices, signed approvals of corruption. Each document pointed fingers at others, the councilman blaming the mayor, the pastor tied to fraudulent donations, the PTA linked to misuse of charity funds. No single villain emerged. Instead, everyone looked guilty. By afternoon, Ashwood was in flames of a different kind. Crowds screamed at City Hall, demanding resignations. Store windows shattered. Neighbors hurled accusations in the streets. Police sirens howled through neighborhoods where once picnics had unfolded. Whole families abandoned their homes overnight, fleeing the chaos. From our window, I watched a town devour itself. "Mom," Aaron said beside me, his voice strangely calm, "we won." Lily, pale, added, "Or maybe we lost everything that was left of us." I put my arms around them both, my chest heaving with breath too heavy to name. Ashwood was burning, not literally, but in ways that would never be repaired. What had been unity was shattered beyond repair. And I knew this was the point of no return. Ashwood was no longer a town. It was a carcass. The streets I once knew as quiet, lined with white fences and trimmed hedges, now throbbed with fear and chaos. Families packed cars in the middle of the night, neighbors screamed across porches, police sirens echoed without end. It was everything I had promised myself they would feel, the torment of being unwanted, unsafe, unmoored. But Ashwood's destruction brought no peace. It was like feeding on ashes, bitter, dry, hollow. Deputy Roland made his move 3 days after the collapse began. He didn't come in uniform this time. He appeared in plain clothes, his tired eyes dim with knowledge. I found him waiting by my apartment staircase. My heart stopped, but I forced my steps steady as I approached. "We need to talk," he said simply. Inside, my children waited, their shoulders rigid as he sat with us at the table, the same table where our plans had been born, where vengeance had fermented quietly until it spilled out like poison into the streets. "You've been careful," he said, his hands steepled before him. "Very careful. No fingerprints, no cameras, no trails that lead directly back to you. But I've been watching, and I can see it plain now. The timing, the precision, the way whispers align with particular names. It's you. All of this, it's you three." Lily sank back in her chair, pale as paper. Aaron bristled, his jaw set with defiance. I simply folded my hands and met Roland's eyes. "And if it is?" I asked. He let out a long, weary sigh. There was no triumph in him. Only dread. "Then you've destroyed more than Ashwood. You've destroyed yourselves. There's no going back. If people find out," he shook his head, "they'll tear you apart." I leaned forward. "And what do you plan to do, Deputy? Drag me outside in cuffs for gossip mongering? Save a town that already feasts on itself? Look outside. Ashwood's not mine anymore. It's its own monster." Roland's lips pressed into a flat line. "I don't plan on saving Ashwood. But I do care if 2 children lose their souls in the wreckage. Your kids shouldn't carry this, not forever." His words stung more than threats ever could. After he left, silence dragged itself across our apartment like a heavy blanket. Lily whispered, "He's right, isn't he, Mom? We can't go back. Nothing will ever be normal again." Aaron snapped at her. "Normal? Normal was walking through school halls while they called you names. Normal was Mom being treated like a murderer without proof. Normal was living under their lies. I don't want normal." His fury shook the table, but his eyes shimmered, not with strength this time, but with fear hiding beneath the cracks. I saw it in both my children then, how much they had suffered, how much harder I had made them become. I wondered for the first time if vengeance had carved scars we could never heal. The final act came sooner than I expected. Ashwood's council dissolved under screaming protesters, and the church locked its doors after Pastor Carr vanished in disgrace. Shops closed, houses emptied. People fled in waves, some blaming each other, some blaming curses, a few whispering of divine punishment. And in the middle of the carnage, someone painted words on the courthouse wall, "The widow did this." The words struck like a thunderclap. Though no one came to my door, though no evidence tied me, I knew the story had already been written in their minds. The outcast widow, the abandoned family, what better villain for their tragedy? They had blamed me once without proof. It was easy to do it again. But this time, unlike before, I had done it. My children looked to me in fear, but I felt no fear. Only clarity. On the last night before Ashwood fell completely into anarchy, I gathered Aaron and Lily. "We have to leave," I said. "Ashwood is ashes now. There's nothing left to burn. We've done what we came to do." Aaron's expression was guarded, but beneath it I saw a strange hunger, as though part of him wasn't ready to stop. Lily, silently crying, clutched my hand as though she feared I might dissolve if she let go. "We'll go somewhere new," I continued. "Start over. Quietly, this time. We carry our secrets with us, and no one will know us as the ghosts we became here. Do you regret it?" Lily asked suddenly through her tears. The question pierced me sharper than a knife. I closed my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. "And no. I regret what it made of us. But I don't regret making them pay. They forced this path on us. And we walked it together." When we left Ashwood at dawn, the streets were empty but for shattered glass and fading posters of stolen children's funds. Sirens were gone. Houses stood hollow, as though souls had been poured out of them. A once proud town had become a ruin, undone not by violence alone but by truth, suspicion, and fear. As we drove past the sign that read "Welcome to Ashwood," I looked back at it one final time. "I was once your victim," I murmured under my breath, so softly neither Aaron nor Lily could hear. "But you will never touch us again. You are the ghost now. We are the survivors." And with that, Ashwood disappeared in the rearview mirror, smoke, ruin, whispers left behind. Ahead of us lay the unknown. A place of exile again, perhaps, but also of possibility. We were not the family I once prayed we would be. But we were alive. Alive and dangerous. I tell this story now not as the woman I once was, nor as the avenger I became, but as something in between, neither innocent nor guilty, neither hero nor villain. Merely a mother who refused to be erased. Years have passed since the day we drove away from Ashwood. We settled far north, in a small town that did not know our names, where no one whispered behind our backs. We kept to ourselves in a modest house by the woods. People only knew me as the widow with 2 children. They saw quiet dignity in us, nothing more. To them, we are ordinary. They could not imagine the shadows we carried with us, or the town we left to ashes. Aaron has grown into a man. He still carries the steel I helped forge inside him, still sees the world as a board he can tilt, but his edge has softened with time. He works with computers now, quietly using the same skills he once wielded as weapons. When he looks at me, I sometimes see both the boy who clung to me through exile and the man who would burn worlds to protect me. Lily, softer but wounded deeper, chose art. Her sketches grew gentler here. No more burning houses, no more mothers with monstrous faces. She paints landscapes now, mountains, rivers, forests awash in green. But sometimes, when she thinks I am not watching, she still draws the old images with trembling hands, as if exorcising ghosts onto paper. And me? I have learned to live a double life. To smile politely at neighbors, to wave during town meetings, to host cups of tea as though I were merely kind. But within me, Ashwood never really died. Its ruins live behind my eyes each night, its screams still curled inside my chest. Sometimes, in the evening quiet, Aaron asks if I feel guilty. My answer never changes. I don't feel guilt for Ashwood, I tell him. I feel sadness for what it made of us. And Lily, always watching, always listening, asks another question. Do you think we'll ever be free of it? To that one, I have no answer. Ashwood never rebuilt. I read about it sometimes, in articles found late at night when the house is still. The population dwindled. Businesses closed. Houses rotted. The land itself seems cursed now, abandoned by hope. Some call it a ghost town. Others say it was consumed by its own corruption. None know the truth, except us. And yet, there is irony too. Because though we escaped, Ashwood still clings to us, as tightly as our own shadows. Perhaps it always will. I used to believe exile was death. Ashwood proved I was wrong. Exile was transformation. Exile was the crucible that burned away the weak woman I had been and revealed what lay underneath, a mother's will sharpen to a blade. I do not regret saving my children. But I mourn the innocence we all lost in doing so. If one day someone discovers our secrets, if the truth of Ashwood comes unfurled like a map of blood, let them call me wicked. Let them call me monstrous. But let them also remember, I warned them long before the end. I was cast out. I was condemned without proof. I was abandoned. And in that abandonment, I found power. Ashwood thought it buried me. But I became the unquiet grave that rose again, dragging it down with me. So let this be my story, etched not in paper but in memory. The story of the widow and her children, who lived when they were meant to die, who struck when they were meant to surrender. We are not martyrs, nor saints. We are something stranger. We are the survivors. And the survivors always write the ending.